Well, chapter 1 kind of left you hanging, left me hanging. And what happened was I went on and got into this really weird story, which didn't make any sense because I was trying to, kind of, what can I say, jumble the facts. But no, if I'm going to talk about it as unlanded immigrant, then I have to acknowledge that I see myself as a free man on the land, and there's that helicopter landing on my head again. So I'll move the camera a bit here. There we go. Uh, I've done that before, right? You remember last time. Anyway, continuity. So actually, what I was going to tell you was my story as I understand it, and I only have one story, and I've only lived one life, but it has been full of everything that I really wanted. And I have to say that I was much influenced in what I wanted from a book I haven't read in, oh, oh Lord, 60 years maybe, by Neville Shute, who was a favorite of mine. It was sort of books for boys. And this was called, I've forgotten. Sorry, it'll come back to me in a moment or two. Um, Short-term memory loss. Something from the tool room, I remember. But anyway, he was a commoner man who made good in Canada, I believe. And I suppose somewhere deep in my wannabe world of those days, and I guess we're all wannabes somewhere along the line. Uh, I guess like all the other little bees, we want to be bees. And there were some things I didn't want to be after I'd had some experience with them, but there were other things I did want to be. And none of them were really put to me straight, like, do you want to be a minister in the church, John? Or, you know, do you want to be? Nobody even questioned those things when I was a child. You're just being a child. And people say, John, you got to go and do this and that and the other. You go, oh, yes, dear. You go and do it. It wasn't a big deal. I think service children were, pretty heavily, uh, should we say, early trained. And I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing because everybody's life was, and it was largely, and I think it was entirely done with love. You know, certainly around the serving classes, children were not ill-treated. They were loved because, I mean, they were often representatives of the freedom that their own parents were not, didn't have that freedom yet, but they hoped for it for their children. And that's a natural outcome of a service condition where the service is as a result of economic slavery of one order or another, rather than a voluntary relationship like within a great family. Well, maybe not often, the confusions of the modern family, but certainly the family that was began to come into the world I came into in 1936 was a world which was striving for ideals. It was, after all, in 1934 when the Bank of Canada was established and gave a great deal of legitimate freedom to the Canadian people that was brought to them by, I have this book right here, very, I'll get it here, to a man I think should be the great Canadian hero of all times, and this is The Conquest of Poverty, and that is, I don't know if you can read it quite there. Oh, it's at the top. Yeah, that's Mr. McGeer, and it was first 1935. first publication was in 1935, and it's an incredible book. And as a result of this, a royal commission, no, excuse me, that's quite, yes, it was a royal commission, but it was headed by an English lord, uh, and he went along with Mr. McGeer and basically gave us the Bank of Canada. And until 1972, uh, it was operating quite nicely. And then I guess that's where, having a mentor and being given a few opportunities that probably I had no right to deserve and certainly was largely incapable of making the best of. But um, I guess for that moment in time, I was valuable to whatever was in British naval intelligence that really knew what was going on and said, "Don't do that." And I was basically sent in to say, "Don't do that," and and got my ass thoroughly kicked out of there because the RCMP didn't take the message seriously, and the cabinet at that time certainly didn't want anybody to take it seriously. Otherwise, it would disrupt their plans, which were in fact to, bring Canadians into a debted situation. Uh, After that foray into affairs, as a result of the advantages of having an admiral who loved your dad, or a vice admiral, who was also important in the British military, and who was, in general, as most, really serious members of military who've experienced war are against militarism, in fact. And it's really becomes rather tiresome, and it's like politics, it becomes rather tiresome. And when it becomes tiresome, then it becomes sloppy, and some of the ideals, principles, and purposes of the institutions, whether it's military or parliament or court or church or anything, simply begin to lack probity. And so there's a discontinuation of legitimacy um, in the office, and what I understand is the color of the office. So as these destructions of the foundations of the institutions that um, proceeded in Canada, and I'd already had 12 years of pretty much struggle here against what I saw was an entirely corrupted environment by really basically dirty tricks and blue meanness at the level of business ethics. And of course we had a growth in the um, development of various orders of secret service, and a great hypocrisy growing within the churches, so that the fix was in just about everywhere you looked. And unless you were ready to toe the line, accepting that the corruption was a normal, natural, and steady state of affairs, that you were really just problematic to the society. And of course, the problem was that nobody recognized there was an alternative. And really, the alternative was simply the elimination of money per se. And that was exactly why the merchant bankers, industrial bankers, the big money families, and the people who claim money and authority and bibbidi babbidi boo and locking directorships, and it's all documented, but that's not the point. The point is that the fear of those forms, those family forms, those dominant one percenters, has always been fear, and the more they put the squeeze on one of their fears, which is being overwhelmed, being overrun. I heard stories about the aristocracy of Britain that brought on the Second World War with their aristocracy friends in Germany to cut down on the breeding males. And the issue was not was not any really serious matter, except, of course, the peasants were revolting as usual. But the fact that uh, horses were really the reserve of the aristocracy, because you need places to, and except for the commoners, of course, and they were being squeezed constantly since the enclosure of the commons and the hunting down of the last Brits and so on. Uh, the 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 change on the land was bicycles, right? With the arrival of the bicycle, well, people could go 50, 100, 150 miles in a day if they wanted to. And, this opened up all kinds of problems for the gatekeepers and the toll gatekeepers and the hunts, And of course, everyone said, "Oh, we got to get rid of some of them. We got to, cut them down, And they did, 60,000 a day. And they did it again in my lifetime when I was, you know, I, I was 4 when that slaughter started. And I was 2. No, no, yeah, I hadn't been born for 2 years when the the serving classes, the technocrats, the people who knew how things should properly be done, and had evolved that through practice in the old empire, if you will, and then basically said, okay, none of these things work. Forget all that, right? If we're really interested in the well-being of ourselves as an aristocracy, as of bloodlines, of a management of a people who willingly, less than willingly serve us, but at least we can negotiate with and have negotiated with and are comfortable on our land and have got caught up in this bloody idiocy from these, new worlders over there who, left probity behind with their whatever. And the best efforts of the Scots and the honest Brits, English, what are they? United Kingdomers? I don't know anymore. I mean, it's a beautiful island. It's a beautiful island that I think is a home. I also live on a beautiful island that in many ways is more attractive to my body than going back to my grandfather's grave and sharing that with those slumbering people. I don't know. What's that all to do with? I guess I'm contemplating. Oh, well, not to worry. None of us get out of this alive, and that is really important to remember that. But my vision is still clear to this day in certain areas. Although at times I've doubted it most seriously because, come on, what is it? You have a brainstorm in the middle of the day by the side of a river, and there's holy doves flying around, or one, and you're having like miracle things going down, and your brain's gone, and you're not even high. You've just been relieved from a great albatross that with your ambition and your desire and your carried away middle-aged energy became a disaster. And no more. It's a success. That's a happier ending. I think I'm going to call that the end of chapter 2 uh, as unlanded immigrant. How John freed himself on the land. Thank you very much. If you find this in any way offensive, well, what can I say? Oh dear. Anyway, happy trails. Thank you, Canada. God bless. And chapter 3 should lead us further down the stream of memory. Remember the Mobius. We're sort of walking on top of the Mobius, and the Mobius, if you haven't seen it, is quite a clever thing. I should demonstrate it for children sometimes. But it's such a beautiful idea. And I think we're sort of standing on that ribbon of time, and it appears in one direction that's going one way and it's going the other direction. We're sort of this little thing on the top of it, here. And anyway, thank you very much.